Hi everyone, welcome to our presentation on task analysis. So as we go through the different pages here, we're going to learn about what it is. You're going to learn total task presentation, backward chaining, and forward chaining. And we'll also have some examples in here for you too. So what is it? Task analysis can be used to break down complex skills or behaviors into smaller, discrete steps. Once the skill is broken into steps, adults can help learners master the individual steps and then chain the smaller steps together to acquire the target skill or behavior. Now, while this sounds simple, it's actually quite complex, especially when you're thinking of the individual steps involved in a much larger task. So looking at total task presentation. So the learner performs an entire chain with reinforcement at each step, and the most effective reinforcer is given at the completion of the task. So looking at our example of hand washing, there are 5 different steps here. So the first step is to turn on the water, get soap on your hands, wash your hands, turn off the faucet, and then dry your hands. So when teaching a learner how to wash their hands, the learner will be prompted and reinforced at each step. And then with the most effective reinforcer, so whatever it is that they may have chosen, that'll be provided after they have completed the final step. So because we're going into the profession of teaching, we thought it might be fun to do a task analysis on making coffee. Because, coffee is essential if you're a teacher, right? So looking at this, thinking about coffee, there are different ways to make a pot of coffee or a cup of coffee. So the first one we're going to look at is making a pot of coffee. And the second one we're going to look at is making a cup of coffee through the Keurig device. So task analysis can either be really simple or really complex, kind of depending on the appropriate task that you are looking at to do. So in this instance, making coffee with a coffee pot, it has 13 different steps. So this would be a more complex task analysis. And then you will see this in action on the following slide.
So now we're going to look at forward chaining and the description from Affirm, which is the website that we were all required to watch our own videos in regard to the evidence-based practice we chose. And the website says that forward chaining, the first step in a chain is taught first. As each step is mastered, the next step is taught. So for forward chaining, we have to remember that we start from the beginning or the first step, and we teach these steps individually. And the most important thing to remember is that these steps are taught to mastery. So we choose the first step and make sure that that step is mastered before moving on to the next step. Another important aspect is that we need to reinforce the behavior after that first step is done. So steps in forward chaining, here's a visual to visualize just the steps for forward chaining and how it's done. So first we prompt the learner to perform the first step. Then we would reinforce the learner for completing the step. And that's really important, is reinforcing their behavior in order to continue to see that behavior being done. After reinforcing, we guide the learner through the remaining steps of the chain. And then when the first step is mastered, the next step in the task analysis is added one at a time. So we have to make sure that we're adding steps one at a time and we're not doing total task presentation. So, for example, if we were to look at hand washing for forward chaining, we would first have our learner turn on the water on their own, but we would prompt them to do so. And once they turn on the water, then we would provide reinforcement and we would guide them through the remaining steps. And for the remaining steps, when we look at forward and backward chaining, many videos show examples of where for the remaining steps we'll grab or hold the child's hand or the individual's hands and guide them through the rest of the steps for them, rather than prompting them and having them do it themselves, which is what we see in total task presentation. And so we're going to look at an example video that I created for making coffee using a Keurig. These are the steps for making coffee using a Keurig. So first we're going to turn on the Keurig. Then we're going to place the cup under the spot as shown in the picture on the right. We're going to then place the pot into the holder, which is located at the top. Wait for the Keurig to heat up. Then we close or push down the pot holder. Select the desired coffee size, so small, medium, or large. We wait for the coffee to brew. Then once it's done, we'll open the pot holder, take out the pot, and then turn off the Keurig, and we'll have our coffee. So here is a video of the forward chaining example. Good job. Then you take the cup and you put it underneath. Then you take the pot and put it in the holder. And you wait for the Keurig to heat. Then you push it down and you select the size. And you wait for the coffee to brew. Then you open it up, take out the pod, and then you turn it off. And now you have your coffee. Good job. Then you take the pot and put it in the holder. And you wait for the Keurig to heat. Then you push it down and you select the size. And you wait for the coffee to brew. Then you open it up, take out the pod, and then you turn it off. And now you have your coffee. So now we're going to look at backward chaining, and backward chaining is very similar to forward chaining, except we're working to master the last step forward rather than going from the first step to the end. And so the description from a firm is the final step in a chain is taught first. As each step is mastered, the previous step is taught. So as I mentioned, we're looking at mastery in the final step and moving forward from there. So steps in backward chaining, here's a visual. The first step is providing assistance for completing initial steps. So again, we guide the learner through the first steps, and then we prompt the learner to perform the final step. And once they do so, we'll reinforce them for completing the final step. And when the final step is mastered, the previous step is added one at a time. And so just remembering that reinforcing that behavior is super important. So if we look at an example again with hand washing, what we'll do is we'll get a hold of the individual's hands, we'll hold their hand and guide them through all of the initial steps. So turning on the water, putting soap in our hand, wetting our hand, then putting soap on our hand, rubbing it together, so on and so forth. And then when it comes to the final step of wiping our hands, then that is when we'll prompt the learner to do so, and they'll do that step and we reinforce it. And so again, we're going to look at a video example in regard to making coffee with Keurig, looking at backward chaining. So this slide is just a reminder of the steps in making coffee with a Keurig. And so this is the example of backward chaining. First we turn it on, then we get our cup and we put it underneath, and then we get the K-cup and we put it inside, and now we wait for it to heat. Okay, now you press it down and you click your size, and now you wait for the coffee to come out. Now you open the holder and you take out the pod. Good job! First we turn it on, then we get our cup and we put it underneath, and then we get the K-cup and we put it inside, and now we wait for it to heat. Okay, now you press it down and you click your size, and now you wait for the coffee to come out. Now you open the holder. Good job, that's so awesome.
So when looking at data collection for task analysis, one of the easiest things to do is to create a data sheet similar to this one. It can be as simple as this or more advanced if you want to add any extra pieces in there. So if you note, you have the steps listed over on the left, and at the bottom of that you have the total correct steps and the percentage of correct steps. And then also please note the date up in the top section there. And then as we go on, that grid system kind of has the prompts that you're going to follow. Another important thing to have on here are the codes. So if the student gets it does it independently or correctly, that's a plus sign. Incorrectly is a minus sign, and then you have all those extra little components in there, such as a verbal prompt, modeling prompt, and a physical prompt. So again, really simple data collection piece, and it can actually tell you a lot.
So we really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch our presentation, and we hope you learned a lot about total task presentation, forward chaining and backward chaining, and how it can be used to teach just basically anything that has multiple steps. So thank you. And here are our references.